Hello, everybody. Welcome to the latest episode of Games Up podcast. My name is Cameron McCulloch-Keeble. His name is Lewis Crawford.
Hello, hello, hello. Hello,
Hello
hello,
there.
hello, hello.
Apologies for the wee crackle that just happened there. Hello, we're back after a couple of weeks. Thank you for your patience. We needed a couple of weeks to get some stuff sorted out. I moved house, and moving house is a good thing, but it inevitably comes with a whole bunch of internet problems and stress and this, that, the other. So we thought we'll take a break after a year and a half of straight podcasts. And give ourselves a couple of weeks. But we're back for good. And if that's a bad thing, you're listening to the wrong show.
I need to stop listening.
No, don't. Keep listening. Just, Lewis, tell us what the indie game of the week is.
So, I've talked about this game a lot, I'll be honest, and this is not the first time that I've kind of mentioned it as a pro indie thing. But essentially, Stardew Valley got a game-changing update recently. For the first time ever, it now has multiplayer. And this is something that's been talked about since release, about 2.5 years ago. And the multiplayer is so good. It's clear that they've put a lot of work in to ensure that while it's now multiplayer and you can play with 4 players, the game is very much the same game. You know, it's not massively changed. It's just you can play with more people. It's great. You know, each player gets to enjoy the game their own way without any real limitations. You can mine, farm, and fish as much as you like. It doesn't really matter what other people are doing. If you don't want to be interested in what they're doing, you can go do your own stuff. And a lot's been done to ensure that, you know, while you might be like player 2, as it were, you can do just as much as player 1 can. You can form your own relationships. If you're so inclined, you can get married to your co-op partner and have kids. Yeah.
I know what we're doing this week.
But this update's been a long time coming. I'm glad to finally see it here. The game's only £11 now. It's been out for a long time, so you know, do yourself a favor, get it, tell your friends to get it for your friends. It's, I think, I don't think many people are disappointed by the game, to be honest with you. It's one of the big hitting indies. And I think, pick it up.
Yeah, it sounds like a good one. Do you know if it's crossplay, multiplayer?
That I don't know.
I seem to remember it. I seem to remember words about it being crossplay multiplayer, but I don't know if that's 100% the case. So look into that, because that might be even more of a reason to pick it up. But yeah, Stardew Valley, a well-known game at this point, with a big game-changing thing recently. Speaking of game-changing things, here's something that we're going to start doing fairly soon. It's not going to game-change anything, but we thought you might like to know about it. We're going to be doing a bit more Twitch streaming in the future. Certainly I am. I've been Twitch streaming recently with the new internet and doing some Crash on Mixer. So we're going to set up a proper thing and do some proper streams, and we'd love people to jump along and say hello and watch us fail miserably to not just talk about video games, but play them as well. That'd be good. And we might do some collaborative stuff. We might jump down if we're sort of in the same place together, play some local multiplayer stuff, that kind of thing. But we thought we'd let you know. All right, let's get on to the news proper. Our first piece of news this week is that Halo Infinite is in fact not very infinite at all. In fact, rather than being a number that requires all the numbers, it's just number 6. Halo Infinite is in fact a direct sequel to Halo 5, just not with the number Halo 6. This is a weird. The more we find out about this game, the more I'm thinking I'm concerned about how they're handling this.
I don't know if it's that bad, but I think they're just afraid of big numbers, to be frank. Because I don't know, there's not many game series that go that high and still use numbers, you know?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I don't know, it just seems weird. Like, the whole tone of the trailer seemed very not another Halo, if that makes sense. Like, it seemed like a very back to basics Halo 1 style, Halo 1 looking, Halo 1 sounding. Like, it really looked like it was sort of trying to speak to a bit of the fan base that they lost. And it seems more and more that the PR on their side is now a bit like, oh, but actually it is just Halo 6.
Yeah, I suppose I could see that. Yeah, I guess I could see that being the case, and I guess time will tell. But it doesn't, to me, it's kind of like going like the next Halo game or the next mainline Halo game is going to be Halo 6 after Halo 5, and you're like, of course it is.
Yeah, exactly.
The only one that's like debatable about it being numbered and not in there is Halo Reach, I think, and like that's like everything else has been like a clear spin-off, and this isn't a
Yeah.
clear spin-off, so it's going to be Halo 6.
I, I, I honestly thought that it might have been like a banner term, like an umbrella term. Like I wondered if it was going to be like the equivalent of the Master Chief Collection for all the stuff that comes next. Like Halo Infinite is like the service that includes Halo 6 and Battle Royale and this, that, the other down the line. And because it was all about it being a new engine, so I thought it was them very much saying this is the future of Halo in a much broader sense.
I kind of like it if
but
it was
even-
Halo Infinite 1, Halo Infinite 2, Halo Infinite 3. It's just because it made me laugh a lot.
Number 2, Pokemon Go is getting a big update this week. In fact, it's on the day that you heard the news story. Now, as I wrote this down in our topics sheet for the show today, Lewis so happily and cheerfully mentioned to me that nobody cares. But actually, I think even you'll care, Lewis. This is the second of the story quests that Pokemon Go started recently. So in March, April-ish time, we got Mew. The second one of those Pokemon is coming out tomorrow, so it's a big story single-player expansion to the mobile game, one that you can basically play without people and have a much more personal experience. If you haven't picked it up yet, now's a great time. It's a cool thing, and it's going to add like a lot more playability to the game. So go and have a look at that. Number 3, Spyro has been delayed. Spyro was supposed to be coming out in just a couple of weeks' time, but it's now coming out in a couple of months' time as it's been pushed back to November. It's coming out now on the same day that Hitman 2 releases, which is an interesting decision on their part.
Yeah. So this was something I didn't surprise me that much, actually. Because one of the pieces of news that we got in the last kind of month was that the other 2 Spyro games were going to be like downloadable, not on the disc.
Mm-hmm.
And I can't help but feel that part of the reason for that was because it was like, okay, we've made Spyro 1, it's done, put it on the disc, gold, whatever.
Yeah.
But Spyro 2 and Spyro 3 weren't there. They had to finish those in the time coming up to the game release. And someone's gone, yeah, we're like 2 months away from it being finished. So it's quite clear that I think it's quite clear that's what's happened.
I don't know that it is as cut and dry as that. I think maybe they probably would have been able to get them out for the codes, but I think there's been a bit of an uproar about them being downloadable and how much space they'll take up and this, that, the other. And I think maybe they're doing what they can to get them all on the disc.
I think they'll still be downloadable.
Really?
I think they'll still be downloaded. It's just that they weren't complete. Because I mean, like, you have to think that some of them must have already been printed, and I wonder whether they would take that loss.
I don't know. The game was supposed to come out, I think, September 20th.
Yeah, it takes a long time to print like a million games.
I don't know that it takes a month. There are some games that go gold like 3 weeks before they come out.
Okay.
I think they probably could have mass-produced the discs they need to in the time.
Yeah.
Like, I kind of see what you mean, that maybe they will be downloadable but to a higher standard in the future. The one that concerns me is Spyro 3, because that's the one that has the most variety in terms of like systems that they need to get right, because there's all the there's the Spyro stuff, but then there's also all the additional little character mini games and things, and I can see how they might be throwing a wrench in the works, maybe with just basic stuff like bug testing and QA. So I don't know, whatever, we still get that little purple dragon back in a couple of months, so it's all cool. Number 4, Diablo 3 is making its way to Switch, which is frankly awesome. I did not think there was any way that Switch could run Diablo.
Yeah, this is something that's been kind of rumored, I guess, for a long, long time. And not something that I think anyone really saw coming.
Yeah, I would never have bet that.
Yeah, they released like a cryptic trailer a long time ago that everyone was like, it's nothing, it's rubbish. There's no way that that's true.
Oh, really?
Yeah, well, so they released like think it was Diablo released, and it was like just a nightlight flashing.
Hmm.
The concept of it was that it was a switch, because it was the switch of the nightlight.
Oh, interesting.
And like the
Wow,
problem is
that's
that like
how
it
long
sounds
ago
like
was that?
what's that?
How long ago was that?
I want to say like near Christmas or something,
Wow,
or
that's
maybe okay, maybe it was like spring at the very least, somewhere in
okay.
there. And yeah, I don't know. Like it's quite funny because the link is so dubious, and then it's like, oh, okay, it,
Oh, it's totally Switch.
apparently so.
One of the more interesting things to come out of this week, though, is that it seems to be the start of some kind of partnership with Blizzard. They have said that there is a chance for future games down the line, and Overwatch could be one of them. First yawn since we come back. And Overwatch could be one of them, although StarCraft is a big old no-go, which is not really all that surprising considering the kind of intricate net code that StarCraft might need. Overwatch needs some of that, but not quite as heavy of it, I would say.
Yeah, no, that seems about right.
Yeah, I'm conflicted on this because if we were to get Overwatch, that would be awesome. I'd love to see some kind of Overwatch crossplay. That'd be great. Also, this could seriously ruin my days because of how little I will get done. I'd also want to know that the game runs properly. I think one of the things that Overwatch relies on is its tech, is how well the game plays, how reliable the mechanics are, those kind of things. And if it comes to Switch, I don't want it to be subpar. So great if it comes to another console, as long as it's not going to there without the sort of quality, not the quality control, but without the kind of set in stoneness that it has on the other platforms. Number 5. Now, this is a really interesting one. The Gamescom awards are happening this week, in line with Gamescom, which is happening this week as well. And the Gamescom awards cover all sorts of things, and they cover the kind of profile that games have on the Gamescom show floor, much in the way that you get like Game of the Show at E3, and we do the same thing for EGX. On this year's list of nominees for the Gamescom Awards is a game that nobody knows yet, called Project Mephisto, and it's listed under the PlayStation 4 category. Now, it's listed there and there alone, which suggests it might be some kind of exclusive, although there are third-party games listed in this category, so it could be a third-party game that just is shown only on PlayStation, or is shown with exclusive content on PlayStation, or something like that. Lewis, this could be anything.
Yeah, it definitely could be anything. And like so on the one hand, like I'm quite excited to see what it is, just because at the moment, on this on the nominations, it's next to Assassin's Creed Odyssey and Marvel's, Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, if it steps toe to toe with those, then we're expecting something massive or big, at least, But then again, it could be like the third, the clear third. So it's hard to say.
So, with it, as you say, it's kind of hard to say because it could be anything. Do you have any kind of thoughts on what you either want it to be or think it might be?
So let's see. There's a bad guy in Avengers called Mephisto.
Oh, shit! Actually, there is.
It's one possible wild speculation. Yeah, I mean, there's all sorts of things. It could just be a random name. Horizon 2, because the bad guy in that's a god. Yeah,
Could be.
I don't know.
Be.
Like it's just crazy speculation, But I think if it's like a genuine title that should be alongside these other two, and to be honest, all the nominations are pretty strong on this site. On this all the nominations for Gamescom are pretty good. And if it steps to, if it's like up there with these ones, then what we're expecting should be quite a big game. Even if it is third party or first party or whatever.
All right, I'll run you down a couple of things that it could be based on things that the word Mephisto has appeared in. So It could be Diablo. Mephisto is a character in the Diablo series. There's been the announcement of Diablo on Switch this week. It could be one of the projects that's been rumored with the Diablo developers. They've been said to be working on like 3 or 4 projects. Diablo 4 is likely the biggest one they're working on, and some ones alongside it. So it could be another Diablo game, which would make it third party, obviously, unless Sony have paid for exclusivity on that one. Although it seems like a lot of exclusivity. Like that would be a big check. As Lewis said, there's Mephisto in the Marvel Comics universe, which actually could be, like, if they showed off Spider-Man PS4, it's out in a couple of weeks, and then, like, the after-credits thing at the end of whatever conferences are happening was Avengers, that could be kind of sick. I could see that happening. There's some other stuff as well. There's some links between Mephisto and Hell, or certainly like Mephisto and devils and Satan and so on and so forth. So maybe something along the lines of Dante's Inferno, although that is more of a stretch for sure. There's not a lot of huge links. Really, there's nothing hugely to go on. I'm gonna put two pitches to you, Mr. Crawford.
Okay.
If it's a first-party game, as in if it's a PS4 exclusive, this is the next Infamous.
Okay.
I don't know who it's developed by. Obviously, it's not Sucker Punch, so I don't know on that one. But I'm trying to think of other things that we're waiting for from Sony, like, and I can't really think of any. Certainly not any that like would go toe to toe with these.
Yeah, I think there are. I think like 2 that we're waiting for, but nothing that big.
If it's not a first party, if it's third party, I'm saying this is Rocksteady.
Oh. Okay.
So it's Gamescom, it's European game development. They've shown off stuff at Gamescom before. We know they've shown off stuff on Sony stage before. Yeah, I'm kind of... That could happen. Maybe.
Oh, you're getting hyped now.
I mean, only for the one thing.
Yeah.
Like, I know for sure that all Xbox has got is the new Elite controller, so we got to have something, right?
Yeah. Oh, okay. I'm actually quite interested in what it is, just because it is like potentially anything. So wild speculation, just go for the biggest thing. But then at the same time,
yeah,
there's evidence to suggest that it could be a big thing. I think if I had more time than what I'm doing right now, I'd work out if there was anything else that PlayStation Gamescom that could have been like a 4th place. If you think like I don't know, like Tomb Raider was there or something, and you know, like whatever this game is that's being nominated is above that one. If you get what I mean.
Oh right, okay, that's interesting.
So like, if PlayStation had something that was big there, then it would kind of suggest that like this was above that.
Yeah, but then the arguably difficult part about that is a bunch of it's based on context. Like if Tomb Raider were there, and this game is there, and Tomb Raider were below it, maybe it's a first place game that has a third place showing.
That's true.
Or maybe
that is true.
Maybe like it's an amazing game, but because it's just been revealed, we don't know like when it's out or something like that.
In fairness, I think it is there just under Xbox. So
sorry.
So Tomb Raider is there actually, but it's under Xbox.
Yeah, see, that's what interests me about the title as well. Like, I'm almost tempted to say it's more likely to be third party than first.
Yeah.
Because like Sony's going pretty hard on what they've got lined up, and it seems weird that they'd hold something back from E3.
Yeah, that's true.
When their big thing at E3 was, this is like the next... Like, their big thing at E3 was, hey, this is what the start of next gen's going to look like.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Oh, man. Oh, I'm kind of excited now. All right. News story number 6 is that Forza Horizon 2 is being delisted at the end of September. Now, what delisted means is that the game will be taken off of digital storefronts. Actually, the game and all of its DLC. If you still own it, if you have ever owned it, you will still be able to download it, play it, pick it up at any time as long as you have an internet connection so that you can download it. You won't need it to check in. But you won't be able to buy it after September 30th. Now, this is fine because there's Forza Horizon 3 and Forza Horizon 4 will be out fairly shortly as well. But it seems a little unfortunate that the game is being delisted so early into its lifespan. There are games from 15 years ago that still haven't been delisted, and Horizon 2 is being taken away. If you're that desperate to get it, luckily it is on Games with Gold at the minute, which means that you can spend a fairly small amount to get a gold membership for the month, download the game for free, and then it is yours to keep. So that's a way to get it, at least if you really desperately wanted it. But yeah, Forza Horizon 2 is going the way of the dodo in a couple of days.
Very good.
Thank you. Considering we did that news story once already, I thought we pulled it out of the bag there. Number 7, the rights to Vampire, Dontnod's most recent bitey IP outing, has been auctioned and will be getting a TV series. Lewis, you're quite into this.
Yeah, I'm quite surprised though, because I'll be honest, while it's a good game, it's not something that has like this real overarching, like this is the story of Vampire and this is how it's different from like vampires bite each other. So like I'm not too sure about this, to be honest with you. I can see it being like, so I mean the basic premise is that you're like a Victorian vampire doctor, and I think that could have potential to be written like about, and expanded upon. But that's like all you get from it, right? So, like, I'm not really sure.
I think it's worth saying that like at this point TV series can mean like BBC show, but it can also mean Netflix show. So it doesn't necessarily mean that it's like a high production Sherlock level crazy outing. It could be something a little smaller, almost like a step up from a web series. But I think it's cool. I'm really glad to see Dontnod expanding as rapidly as they are. Hopefully that means Remember Me Too one day.
We can only hope.
I genuinely do. And finally, this week, one of the coolest announcements, despite a week of big announcements, was that the latest in the series of Assassin's Creed that comes out this year, Assassin's Creed Odyssey, is going to have a Shadow of Mordor-style mercenary system. Now, to give you a background, in Shadow of Mordor and Shadow of War that followed it, if you kill a certain member of the opposing force, that might have repercussions on the surrounding people. Like, perhaps you kill somebody and one of their generals comes after you for revenge, or you kill a general and somebody then becomes the general as a response to that. It can pretty drastically shape the kind of what's the word?
Dynamic playstyle.
No, the interactions. It can shape the interactions that you have with the enemy, which is a fairly vital part of any one of these games. And I'm so stoked that it's in Assassin's Creed. Lewis, how excited are you for this damn game?
So I've been kind of watching all of the different trailers and the new bits of footage they show, and they've shown quite a bit. I am really excited. I'm very much excited for it. I think we've kind of gone beyond it being an Assassin's Creed, mind you. I think like this, like, so the last one kind of felt like it might have been like a last hurrah on that kind of point of view. And like this one, from what I've seen of it, doesn't really look like it's that linked into the Assassin's point of view, but like in terms of its promise and what it looks to do, this very much kind of expands upon this idea that actually we just kind of want to go to Egypt during Egypt times, and this one's kind of going to Greece, but in like the height of Greece, and I think that's going to be very exciting.
I actually kind of disagree with you, and it's for that disagreement that I'm so excited for this game. It seems like they're putting all the kind of gameplay elements in that would really have been a revolution of Assassin's Creed. Like, Assassin's Creed Origins was great, but it was very much an Assassin's Creed game. It had some cool mechanics like Senu the Eagle, and the like the stargazing mechanic was really cool, and some of the storytelling mechanics were cool. But you could have cut and copied Ezio's story, and it would have still felt like an Assassin's Creed game. This feels like it's a total upping of that system, much like Brotherhood was to 2, much like Revelations arguably was to Brotherhood. This seemed like they're giving us dialogue options and romancing options, and now this mercenary system. And I really like the way that this is a clear step up in terms of what the game is. And the fact that it's going back to the time in which we get the names of the people who are so key to the lore of Assassin's Creed, I feel like this is going to be less assassins in name, more assassins in story, where Bayek was less assassins in story, more in name, if that makes sense.
Yeah, okay. I see what you're saying. Yeah, okay. Yeah, no, I can see what you're saying with that. Um, I'll be honest though, I'm at a stage now where like I'm less interested in the assassin side. For a long time, I was more, and I'm kind of, to me, like the look of this, and actually looking, if you want to spend like some time just looking through like the website for it, there's some really interesting, just like how interesting the environments are that we're going to explore and the things we're going to encounter, and I'm super up for that. Um, there's a huge scale to the game that they're building, and you can tell there's like 34, or well, I don't know, maybe I made that number up, but there's like 30 different regions or something, each with its own kind of like unique, like this is a Greece, paradise Greece island. This is like volcano-y. This is, I think while I really liked Assassin's Creed Origins, it was kind of like sandy mostly, and like no offense to it, it's in Greece, but like no, sorry, it's in Egypt, but this one looks like it's going to be much more varied, much more idyllic as well, which I think is going to be quite cool.
Yeah, you're right. Origins had a kind of differentiation between like pyramid sand and swamp sand, whereas Greece has the opportunity to go like center of a city Greece, total outside country Greece, islands and seafaring Greece. It being a lot more varied as a location gives it an opportunity not just for much more varied locations in the game, but like how you actually play in those locations.
Yeah, for sure. I'm super excited for it, to be honest with you.
I think it's so interesting that whenever we argue gameplay versus story, we fall on two different sides. You fall on story, I fall on gameplay, and we've totally flip flopped for this.
Yeah, and actually, in fairness, I think maybe I'm just kind of I've watched too much gameplay videos at this stage, because I think like on Origins we were the other side. I was back on story. So I don't know, but I think regardless, it looks like it's going to be really good. I think there's a lot to enjoy, and I think even if it's just a bit like Origins was in the sense where it's a big Egyptian playground or a big Greece playground, I'm well up for that.
Yeah, yeah, I'm totally with you. I've decided that I'm going in dry. I'm not going to watch any more trailers.
Yeah.
Really, unless there's a really big story moment in them that kind of confirms what I want out of it. I'm not going to look at them. I'm not going to see. I'm going to try and sort of stay away from news and screenshots. I haven't really done that before. I don't do that a lot for games or films. And I'm thinking if this time it gives me a sort of a slightly more fair idea of what the game is trying to be, maybe I'll enjoy it more or more fairly enjoy it less, if that makes sense.
Right.
I sometimes feel that because everybody I talk to loved Origins for the same reason I liked Origins, but just more so. So I'm kind of wondering if I sort of tainted it a little bit by seeing too much of it to begin with.
Okay. Okay.
Mm.
Well, I've been watching everything, and I can tell you I'm very excited for it.
So where do you think this leads Assassin's Creed going? Do you think we are going backwards? Do you think it's just more of a playground approach now?
See, it's tough to say because at the same time as them, say, making Origins more open, they also made sure to include like the outside of the Animus story and like have that progress. So it's quite obvious we're going to be in the next game. We're going to be in. I think we know we're going to be in Alexandria actually. So I think that's confirmed. But we're going to be in Alexandria doing this guy's story or this girl's story. And it's we're still going to have that outside the Animus stuff. So it's clearly the normal Assassin's Creed elements are going to be there. I think I can see what you're saying, where it's likely that maybe we'll actually meet the kind of the old gods, the ancients that are like involved in some sense. You don't think so? I thought that's what you were saying.
What's that? Sorry.
Like that we might meet like the ancient ones or whatever the old ones.
I
as opposed to say having like the normal assassins, you're an assassin kind of vibe.
I don't. I'm kind of torn because like I don't know if we'll meet them in this game. I certainly think that taking the story back to Greece, they've got to do something. Like it's got to be a part of the story if they're still, giving it really caring about that they make some kind of note, some kind of reference. There's something more lore-ish to it. Um, if they're really going hard on the story and the lore, I think they might be using this as a way to go back to the first Civ. Maybe via Greece as some kind of loophole. Maybe it's a lot longer than a trilogy. Maybe it's like a 4, 5, 6 game arc, and maybe we go back through the Crusades again. Maybe we go back to like biblical times. I think that would be really, really fascinating because one of the greatest tragedies I think of Assassin's Creed is that the sci-fi world of the first Civ that was painted in Assassin's Creed 2 in the glyphs and the puzzles is so unique and so interesting, and I genuinely feel it's such a shame that we never got to. Like, if we don't get a full game in it, that's fine, but just the opportunity to see a bit of that world properly would be fascinating. And they didn't put much story in, but they started to hint more about that in Origins with, like, Bayek getting the armor from the first Civ and the being talked directly to and the structures. And I like the idea that they're doing it not as much, like, it's not as kind of overtly asshole-ish as the story used to be, because it was, like, quite in your face at times with some of the cutscenes and the actions with Desmond. But I like the idea that they're really building towards a bigger kind of lore crescendo, as it were.
Right.
I don't know, man. I'm super excited. I'm super excited for this.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
So, with that being said, final thing on this as we close out the show for the day. Where's your dream Assassin's Creed?
Oh, okay. I'll be honest, like, probably Greece. I mean, like, no. So, I'm very much into ancient history in general, and so that kind of puts me either at Greece, Egypt, or Rome. So actually, probably Rome, but Rome in the time of the Romans, as opposed to Rome the 3 games we've already played.
Okay.
Because I think like one of the things that I'm quite interested in is that in the new Assassin's Creeds, and we talked about this before, how it's always kind of been in the ruins of an old empire, and it's always been like, the new cities in the old empires, in the old ruins, and like I feel like it's so much more exciting just to be in the old empire.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's like I think Origins proves it adds a lot more to it, because Origins could have just been like Sandy. Yeah, I don't know. So
yeah, I get what you mean.
Probably whatever the third game is in this trilogy. It might not be a trilogy.
I think mine would be something akin to biblical times, almost like the Far Cry Primal of the Assassin's Creed world. Like, I'd like to see them. I really love the mechanics, and I love the way they've built up the story and so on and so forth. And in my idealized only the lore of Assassin's Creed, I like the idea of maybe stripping it back to something a little more basic and seeing how that builds up those characters and that world from scratch, rather than the not bloated isn't the right word, but the kind of nicely full games that we have now. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that wraps us up pretty nicely this week for our first proper back episode of Games Up for a couple of weeks. Thank you very much. We've just got 2 little housekeeping things to say. Firstly, in a couple of weeks' time, we've got EGX in September, which is going to be great fun. They're teasing a bunch of games to be on the show floor. It looks great. We want to be doing indie things. We have always done an EGX indie showcase. from EGX, and we'd love to speak to you if you are an indie developer or if you know an indie developer. If that is the case, feel free to get in touch with us. Our contact details are in the comments and in the show notes below. We are at Games Up on everything, so we are at Games Upcast on Facebook, YouTube, iTunes, Twitter, and by the end of this week, we will be at Games Upcast on Twitch as well, where you can feel free to jump on, and we will both have the details for all that stuff. So if either of us want to stream at any point, we can, and we'll let you know about it on Facebook and Twitter as well. Thanks very much for joining me. Lewis, what are you going to be playing this week?
So probably more Stardew Valley. I've been playing a lot of that, but also Monster Hunter World. Been playing.
Oh, very nice.
Very, very good. Very good game.
Cool. I am going to be enjoying a bit more of Overwatch's Summer Games. I am going to be going for my final gold relic in Crash 3, which is utterly kicking my ass. And there is one more. That escapes my mind. But I'll be playing that. Whatever it is. So, that being said, thank you very much for joining us for the show, if you did. And if you enjoyed what you heard here, feel free to drop a like to it, just so that we know we're doing stuff good and we might get out in front of a few more people. It means a lot to us. And also subscribe to the show, whether you're on iTunes or YouTube, so that you catch it whenever we make it. We put it out on Mondays at 6:30 in the evening, or much, much earlier that day, so you can catch it on your way to work or around lunchtime, whichever you would prefer. Thanks very much. See you next week. And the game is well and truly up.